Alright, so this is the first presentation in the AP Macroeconomics sponsored by East Brunswick Academy. The first lesson is limits, alternatives, and choices. So first, let's look at the economic perspective, specifically scarcity and choice. So scarce economic resources mean limited goods and services. So this restricts options and demand choices. So in layman's terms, it means we need to decide what we will have and what we need to forego. The core of economics is that someone or something will end up bearing the cost. And this leads to an important economic concept called the opportunity cost. Essentially, this means in order to obtain more of one thing, society needs to forego the opportunity of getting the next best thing. And I'll show you more of this on a graph at the end of the presentation. Purposeful behavior. So we as economists assume that human behavior reflects rational self-interest. So basically, every single decision we make, every single thing we do is done to further our utility. Utility means the pleasure, happiness, or satisfaction obtained from consuming a good or service. And as individuals, as humans, it is our job to develop, to increase our utility. Economic decisions are purposeful, rational. They're not random or chaotic. Every single thing we do has a purpose, and it's done in order to increase this utility. So now, purposeful behavior, it does not assume that people, and institutions are immune from faulty logic. We're not perfect as human beings. There are faults in our decisions. But it doesn't necessarily mean that what we're doing is random or chaotic. We may think we're making the best choice with the information that we have, but sometimes there are consequences that we cannot determine with the information that we have. And rational self-interest is not the same as selfishness. So let me differentiate the two. Rational self-interest is someone doing their homework and then giving it to another person because they've already finished it. Now, to be selfish is to not give that homework simply because they're feeling vindictive or mean. So, here goes to another important concept, marginal analysis. It's a comparison of marginal benefits and marginal costs, usually for decision making. So, what is marginal benefit? It's essentially when you make the decision and there are more benefits than costs. So suppose you buy a car, right? Now the marginal benefits would be that you get this new luxury lifestyle. You get to drive to locations that you can't do just by walking. You get air conditioning during the summer, or you get the heater during the winter. You get leather seats, which is an extremely nice luxury. Now, the marginal cost would be the money involved with it, or the gasoline that's involved. And you always want to make sure that the marginal benefits always outweigh the marginal costs. So let's take another example, an engagement ring. So you want to look at the costs and what else? So if you want to have more marginal benefits, you might want to buy a bigger diamond ring. Why would you do this? The reason being is that a bigger diamond ring would impress your wife a lot more than a smaller diamond ring. But you also have to look at the marginal costs. Buying a bigger diamond ring would mean that you're dishing out more money to buy this. And in the short run, while your wife might be happy at first, you might end up in a huge load of debt, which will not be profitable in the long run. So the second major concept of this presentation are theories, principles, and models. So economics relies heavily on the scientific method. And you may have learned this in science class, where you make an observation, create a hypothesis, create an experiment in order to prove whether that hypothesis is correct or incorrect, and you modify the hypothesis if you're proven incorrect, and then you make your conclusion. So the economic principle. It's a statement about economic behavior, or the economy that enables prediction of probable effects of certain actions. So there are several types of economic principles. So let's look at generalizations. They're principles that are expressed as tendencies of the average consumer, worker, and business firms. Another economic principle is the other things equal assumption. Factors other than those being considered do not change except for the variable being analyzed. And you will end up using this other things equal assumption a lot because it makes life a lot more easier. So suppose you have an experiment, right? There are many factors involved, but you only want to check whether or not factor X, you only want to perform the experiment on factor X. So use the other things equal assumption. The reason being is that every other factor stays the same except for factor X. And now you're free to test factor X without the fear that there are other factors in play. So economists develop theories of the behavior of the individuals and institutions engaged in the production, exchange, and consumptions of goods and services. So on to the important part, macroeconomics and microeconomics. So macroeconomics examines either the economy as a whole or its basic subdivisions or aggregates, such as the government, households, or business sectors. So essentially, macroeconomics looks at the big picture, hence its prefix macro. On the other hand, microeconomics is concerned with individual units such as a person, a household, a firm, or an industry. Essentially, it looks at the little details, while macroeconomics looks at the big picture. So now there's several subparts to macroeconomics, mainly the positive and normative economics. So positive economics focuses on facts and cause and effects relationships, while normative economics incorporates value judgments about what the economy should be like or what particular policy action should be recommended to achieve a desirable goal. Essentially, positive economics is concerned with what is, and normative economics is concerned with what ought to be. So the next part is the individual's economizing problem. So first, what is an economizing problem? It's a need to make choices because economic wants exceed the economic means. So let's look at some of the factors to this issue. So limited income is everyone has a finite amount of income, and that always holds true. No one has an unlimited source of money, despite what people think about credit cards. Income can come in the form of wages, interest, rent, and profit. So now let's look at the unlimited wants. So most people have virtually unlimited wants, and it ranges from necessities to luxuries. So looking at a person's list of wants and needs. So people will need groceries. That's how they make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But they might also want a new laptop. That's a luxury. It's not required it's not required for the survival, but they still want it. And over time, economic wants and services tend to change and multiply. For example, the internet, iPhone, car repairs, etc. The internet, people want faster service, they want faster upload speeds, they want faster download speeds, even though in America, while internet is taken for needed, in third world countries or in continents, internet is an extreme luxury that most people do not have. With the iPhone, people are getting upgrades every year now, while some people are struggling to make payments for this month's rent. So in the people's self-interest to economize, to pick and to choose goods and services that create the maximum utility. That is the objective of every person in this economy. And now, let's look at the budget line. So the budget line is a schedule of curve that shows various combinations of two products a consumer can purchase within a specific money income. So basically, this is what a lot of people have to balance, whether they should have product A or product B. And it often comes down to this budget line. Alright, so now let's look at society's economizing problem. So the question becomes, how can society devote its funds? And it comes down to several things. So let's look at economic resources. So this encompasses all natural, human, and manufactured resources that go into production of goods and services. And although the people may have unlimited wants, society has limited or scarce economic resources. So now let's go to the resource categories, otherwise known as the factors of production. So these four factors are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability. Land. It's the land itself and everything on it. So that can include forest, minerals, and oil deposits. Labor. So labor encompasses the physical and mental talents of individuals used in producing goods and services. Capital. As seen by capital goods, and includes all the manufactured aids used in producing consumer goods and services. And this is often related to investment, the purchase of capital goods. And don't get this mixed up with capital, which is synonymous to money. And last but not least, it's the entrepreneurial ability. It's the laborers who take charge and start their own business. So now let's look at the production possibilities model. So the society uses scarce resources to produce goods and services. In the macroeconomic model, several assumptions are made. Full employment, fixed resources, fixed technology, and two goods. Full employment, all resources are being used. Fixed resources, quantity and quality of the factors of production are fixed. Fixed technology, the method used to produce output is constant. And the two goods is the economy is only producing two goods. So this is the assumptions that you make when you look at the production possibilities curve. And these two goods, one of them are consumer goods and one of them are capital goods. Consumer goods are products that satisfy the wants of the consumers, and capital goods are products that satisfy the consumer's wants indirectly by making possible more efficient production of consumer goods. So now, let's look at the production possibilities curve. More often than not, output of Y will be the capital goods, and output of X will be the consumer good. So now, let's take a look at the assumptions. We assume that this line is a full employment line. At this line, all resources are being used. Fixed resources are these right here. The quantity and quality of the factors of production are fixed. Fixed technology is this entire graph. This line indicates that the technology will not improve or it will deteriorate. If you improve the technology, then this line will expand. If the technology worsens, then the line falls back. And the two goods, Y, X. So the production possibilities curve is the data presented in a production possibilities table shown graphically. As I shown before, that was a visual representation of the table. This curve displays the different combinations of goods and services that society can produce in a fully employed economy. So basically, this is a visual representation of how much you can buy of product X and how much you can buy of product Y, while ensuring that the economy is at its maximum output. So now let's look at the law of increasing opportunity cost. So as the production of a particular good increases, the opportunity cost of producing an additional unit rises. So now let's go back to this production possibilities curve. As such, that's saying as you go up this line, the cost of creating output, the cost of creating X rises while the cost of making product Y decreases. And now let's look at a very important concept, the optimal allocation. So basically, this essentially this dictates which specific quantities of resources should be allocated to each product created in order to create the to maximize satisfaction. So this is a job of most economists, to find out which combination will be best for the economy, so that society benefits and the people benefit. So now, finally, unemployment, growth, and the future. So resource supplies are fixed at any specific moment, but they can change over time. And the net result of these increased supplies of the factors of production is the ability to produce more of both consumer goods and capital goods. And because of this, you create economic growth, a larger total output. As I said before, advanced technology brings new and better goods and improved ways of producing them. That's why when you look at the production possibilities curve, the line expands when you improve that technology. And economic growth is a result of increase in supply of resources, improvement in resource quality, and technological advances. Growth leads to greater output of both consumption and capital goods. It's essential that an economy experiences economic growth in order to satisfy the needs of the people and society, so that people are kept happy and that eventually the economy can reach its maximum output. Thank you for watching, and this concludes the lesson of the first chapter.